Welcome to lecture 4 of DBMS concurrency control. So let us take the first question. Now this appears in GATE 2014. So we are provided with the schedule and there are 4 transactions T1, T2, T3 and T4. Now the question is whether S is conflict serializable and whether it is recoverable. So before finding a solution to this problem, let us see what do you mean by a recoverable schedule. So in a recoverable schedule, once the transaction has done all its operations and it is committed, at any cost it should not be rolled back. What do you mean by rollback? Whatever the changes that T has done to the data items, that should not be undone. Or in other words, consider transaction T dash which writes the data item X, and after some time transaction T, it reads that value of X. Whatever T dash has written X, whatever the value of X T dash has written, T is going to read that value. So this, we consider this as a conflicting operation. Whenever one transaction writes a data item and another transaction reads the same data item, we categorize that as a conflicting operation. Now suppose after T has read X and it has done halfway through all of its operations, say during that time, during that interleaving, T dash has aborted its operation. Now if T dash gets aborted, as a result, whatever the value of X T dash has returned, since it is read by T, T should also be aborted. So that's why we are interested in recoverable schedules. In recoverable schedules, we will not encounter this problem. So how recoverable schedule works? We are not going to commit any transaction. So T is not going to commit until T dash has committed. So since T reads the data item X and the X value, whatever it is written by T dash, it is going to read that value. So only if T dash commits, only then T is allowed to commit. Otherwise, we have to postpone the commit operation of T until T dash has completed. T dash has committed. Now why we are postponing this commit? Because in case if T dash has been aborted later, once T is committed, then T should also be aborted. So to handle that case, we postpone the commit of T until T dash has committed. So only if T dash has, we know that T dash has committed, then we can go and commit T. So in the case of recoverable schedule, we will never have a rollback. We will never have a rollback in the case of a recoverable schedule. So let us consider the 4 transactions that are given in the problem. So first, let us see which are all the transactions which are writing a value and read by some other transaction. So T1, if you take T1, now T1 writes X, and this value, if you see here we don't have X, so T1 it writes X, and then that value it is read by T4. So it is read by T4. So similarly, we have T2 which is writing this Y, and it is being read by T4. Now what happens here is, after some time, after writing this X, T1 gets committed, and only after commit T4 reads this value, And similarly, after writing this y and after this transaction commits, the value of y is read by T4. So the reads are always coming from committed transactions. So there is no issue of aborting T1 or aborting T2. T1 is committed, only after that T4 reads the value of x. Similarly, T2 commits whatever it has written the value of y, only after that T4 is going to read the value of y. So this schedule, it doesn't suffer from cascading abort. So this schedule is called as a recoverable schedule. So these 4 transactions making up the schedule, so it is a recoverable schedule. And also it is a cascadeless schedule. Now what do you mean by cascadeless schedule? If a transactions always read from committed transactions. So if a transaction reads a data item, always it comes from a committed transaction like this. So whatever T4 reads x, it is coming from a committed T1, and similarly y value is also coming from a committed T2. So such a transaction, such a schedule is called as a cascadeless schedule because there is no problem of cascading abort. So it is called as a cascadeless schedule. And cascadeless schedules are always recoverable. So the first part of question is whether S is recoverable. Yes, it is recoverable. So let us move on to the second part of the question, which is whether S is conflict serializable. So what do you mean by conflict serializable schedule? So let us first consider what is a serializable schedule. So if a schedule S is serializable, if it is equivalent to some serial schedule. Now what do you mean by serial schedule? Suppose we have two transactions T1 and T2 executing all the operations of T1, and after completion of T1 executing all the operations of T2. So that is one serial schedule. Or if we start with T2, execute all the operations of T2, and after it has been completed execute all the operations of T1. So that is another serial schedule. So when we go for interleaving of operations, now we will get a non-serial schedule wherein the operations from T1 and T2 both will mix together in a timeline. Then what do you mean by conflict equivalent? Now check for the conflicting operations in the schedule, that is in the non-serial schedule and serial schedule. And if the order of conflicting operations are same, then we say that they are equivalent, they are conflict equivalent. So what do you mean by conflicting operations? So let us say transaction 1 reads x and transaction 2 writes x. After transaction 1 reads x, transaction 2 writes x. Or transaction 1 writes x, after that transaction 2 reads that value. Or transaction 1 writes x and after that transaction 2 also writes a new value of x. As a result, whatever the value written by transaction 1, it got lost. So what do you mean by a conflicting operation? One transaction must be a read operation of database item and another transaction should be a write on the same database item, or both the operations are right. So these are called as conflicting operations. Now if you compare the order of these conflicting operations in a non-serial schedule and a serial schedule, the order of conflicting operations must be same in both the schedule. Then we can say that the non-serial schedule is conflict equivalent to a serial schedule. So there is a simple method for testing conflict serializability. So it is by using precedence graphs. So in a precedence graph, nodes represent transactions. So in this schedule we have 4 transactions, T1, T2, T3 and T4. So create a node for each of these transactions. This is a node for T1, node for T2, node for T3 and node for T4. And we are going to draw an edge from Ti to Tj whenever Ti reads x and Tj writes x, or Ta writes x and Tj reads x, or Ti writes X and Tj also reads X. And this label, we label this edge as X. So let us consider transaction T2. So first check for whether there are any conflicting operations. Whether one transaction reads database item X, another transaction writes X, or one transaction writes X, another transaction reads X, or one transaction writes X, another transaction also writes some other value of X. So if you consider T2 and T3, consider this particular operation. So whatever T has written, T is reading value of X and T3 is writing value of X. So this is one conflicting operation. So to represent this conflicting operation in the graph, we create an edge from T2 to T3 and we label this edge as X. So we have from T2 to T3 we have a edge and this edge is labeled as X. Similarly, T2 has read of X and T1 is having a write of X. So this edge is being created from T2 to T1 and it is labeled as X. So from T2 to T1 again we create an edge and it has been labeled as X. Now we have completed from T2. So these are the two dependencies we have. And if you consider T2 versus T4, this is a read of X and this is also a read of X, but this is not a conflicting operation. Any one of the operation must be a write. Only then it is called as a conflicting operation. Next, starting with T3. Now T3 writes X and it is T1 also writes X. So T3 writes a value of X that has been overwritten by T1. So we create an edge from T3 to T1. This is for this conflicting operation. From T3 to T1, we create an edge and then it has been labeled as X. Similarly, T3 writes value of X and T4 reads that value of X. So this is also a conflicting operation. So to represent this, from T3 to T4, we create an edge and it is labeled as X. So it is labeled as X. Now we have completed up to T3. Now come to the next set of operations. So it is done by T1. So from T1, now T1 writes data item X. Now this is a different read. This reads database item Z. This writes database item Y. So we don't have any dependencies with T2 and T1. But when you come to T4, so T1 writes X that has been read by T4. As a result, we will create an edge from T1 to T4 and we will label this as X. So from T1 to T4, we have an edge and it is labeled as X. So now we have completed up to T1, up to this operation. Now come to T2. So T2, it writes database item Y and that is being read by T4. So we create an edge from T2 to T4 and it has been labeled as Y. So from T2 to T4, we create an edge and it has been labeled as. Now once this precedence graph has been created, you check whether there are any cycles in this graph. Now there are no cycles here. So you can also pause this video and verify whether there are any cycles in this graph. So since there are no cycles in this precedence graph, this schedule is a conflict serializable schedule. So if you find any cycles in this graph, in a precedence graph, then it is not a conflict serializable schedule. Since no cycles are found in this precedence graph, this schedule is a conflict serializable schedule. So coming to the first part of the question, whether S is conflict serializable, yes, it is conflict serializable. Whether it is recoverable, yes, it is also recoverable. Let us consider the second question. So this is coming from GATE 2015. So we are provided with a schedule containing two transactions T1 and T2, and this is the interleaving of operations. Now we are given that T1 fails immediately after time instance 9. So after executing these 9 operations, after ninth operation is completed, then T1 fails. And we are provided with 4 scenarios, and we have to check whether which one is correct. So let us debit this scenario. So we have T1, we have T2, and after time instance 9, T1 it fails. Now if you look at the completing operation, now T1 it reads A, writes A, and whatever the value of A written by T1, that is being read by T2, and T2 it commits. It is not waiting for T1 to commit. It has read a value from T1, and it is not waiting till T1 has committed or T1 is aborted. It is not postponing its commit. So T2 has committed first before T1, and as a result what happens is, after reading database item B, T1 fails. Now as a result, whatever the operations that we have done as part of T2, so this has to be undone. This has to be aborted. So since this scenario, this schedule is having a cascading rollback. When T1 fails, T2 has read a value from T1, so T2 should also abort it. So this is not a recoverable schedule. So we know that if T2 reads, since T2 reads from a non-committed transaction T1 and has committed before T1 commits, it is not recoverable. In a recoverable schedule, we always try to read the items from a committed transaction, or from a transaction we read the value of a database item, and then we wait until the parent transaction has committed. Only then we are allowed to commit. So here T2 it commits before T1. So as a result, it is not a recoverable schedule. Now once we know that it is not a recoverable schedule, S is not a recoverable schedule, if you look at the options B and D, so schedule S is non-recoverable and cannot ensure transaction atomicity. So this statement is correct. And what about statement D? Schedule S is recoverable and can ensure atomicity, nothing else need to be done. So we know that this S is a non-recoverable schedule, so statement D is wrong. So we can omit statement D. Then we are left with two other options, option A and option C. Option A, it says T2 must be aborted, then both T1 and T2 must be restarted to ensure transaction atomicity. And C, it states that only T2 must be aborted and it has to be restarted. So before proceeding with A and C, let us see what do you mean by atomicity. So either the transaction must be performed in its entirety or not performed at all. So that means now T1 it fails. Now as a result, whatever the operations it has done, it has to be undone. So it has written a new value of A, so this has to be undone. So that's what we mean by atomicity. Either we complete this T1 and we will get a database state after T1 has successfully completed, or we will roll back to a database state where T1 has never occurred. Now coming to statement C, if we abort T2, what happens? Now T1 it fails. Now if we abort T2, now we have two transactions to be performed again, T1 as well as T2. Now starting T2 alone, now what happens is it will read a value. It is not coming from T1, it will not come from T1, and it will yield a very different result. So aborting T2 alone, it will not help. Again, T1 should also be started and T2 should also be started. Both has to be started. So option C, we can't only restart T2. So option C is wrong. So we can omit option C. Now we are left with A and B. We know that B is true. Let us come to A part. Now A says that T2 must be aborted, then both T1 and T2 must be restarted. Yes, it is correct, right? So because T1 has failed, so it will be rolled back, and T2 it has to be aborted, and the pending operations will be both the operations in T1 and both the operations in T2. Then we have to restart both T1 and T2. But when we restart now, we will not get a schedule exactly like this. We will get a schedule with a different interleaving of operations. We may get a schedule with a different interleaving of operations. Again, for that schedule, there may be some other problems may come. Or for the if we consider the same schedule repeated again, same problem may occur. The same, right? If we commit it here, the same problem may occur. So with option A alone, we can't ensure atomicity. Just by restarting T1 and T2, we can't ensure atomicity. Again, we should look into the interleaving of operations. What operations have been interleaved? So as a result, we are not sure about option A. So the only known fact is we know that schedule S is non-recoverable and cannot ensure transaction atomicity. So B is the correct answer. So let us consider the third question. Now this is taken from GATE 2016. So consider the following database schedule with two transactions T1 and T2. So this is the schedule that has been given. And auto of x, it means that transaction 2 reads value of x. This is the first operation in the schedule. Second operation is transaction 1 reads value of x. Third operation is transaction 2 reads value of y. Fourth one is transaction 1 writes the value of x. And fifth one, transaction 1 reads value of y. Next is transaction 2 writes value of x. And after that, transaction 1 aborts and transaction 2 also aborts. Now given this scenario, we are asked to check whether which of the following statements are correct. Whether S is not recoverable, S is recoverable but it has a cascading abort, whether S does not have a cascading abort, and whether S is a strict schedule. So let us check the first two parts, whether S is a recoverable schedule or not. So let us depict this schedule in a tabular format like this. So we are provided with two transactions T1 and T2. So the first operation we do is it is done by T2 read of x. So T2 read of x. Next operation is by T1 read of x. So next operation is after this T1 read of x. Next is T2 read of y. Next is write of x by T1. Next is read of y by T1, right? So this pair, so it is here, and this operation W2 of x, it is here, and about T1 and about T2. Now we know that, right, in a recoverable schedule, to check whether a given schedule is recoverable or not, we have to check whether one transaction has written a data item and another transaction has read the data item. So let us consider here what is the value of x that is read by T2, because T2 is starting first. So what is the value read by T2? Now if you see, the value of x is not coming from T1. the value of x is coming from a previous database state. So before starting T1 and T2, there might be a value of x. So that value of x is actually read by T2. Now after that, this is a read operation, this is a read y, and then we have a write T1, write x by T1. But this value, it is not read by T2, or it is not used by T2. After that, what we have is T2 is also writing a new value of x, and whatever the value of x written by T1, it is overwritten by T2. But for a recoverable schedule, we don't consider write operation, one transaction doing a write operation and another transaction doing the same write operation on the database item, same database item. That we don't consider, this path we don't consider. We are interested in the read operations. So the read should always come from committed transaction for a schedule to be recoverable. Or other words, you read a value of a database item from another transaction, and we should postpone the commit until the parent transaction has committed. So if you look at here, the value read by T1, value of x read by T1, similarly value of x read by T2, both are coming from previous committed database state. So here it has no role to play. So S is a recoverable schedule because they are not dependent on each other. So S is a recoverable schedule. It is not a S is non-recoverable schedule. This option A is false. So S is a recoverable schedule. Now the second part of option B is but has a cascading abort. So we have to check whether this schedule suffers from a cascading abort. Now since both the reads are from previous database state, if one gets aborted, now T1 has not read the value from T2. So if this gets aborted or T2 gets aborted, there is no need to abort the other transaction. So this schedule, it is not having a cascading abort. It is a cascadeless schedule. So S is recoverable and also it is a cascadeless schedule. So but has a S is this option B, it states that S is recoverable but has a cascading abort. Now the second part of the statement is false because it is not suffering from a cascading abort. Now let us come to the third part. S does not have a cascading abort. So what do you mean by cascadeless schedule? All the reads are coming from committed transactions. So S is recoverable and it doesn't have any cascading abort problem. So statement C is true. S does not have any cascading abort. So since both the reads are coming from this read and this read, both the reads are coming from previous database committed state. So this schedule is a cascadeless schedule. So as a result, option C is true. S does not have a cascading abort is true. Let us come to option D. Whether the schedule S is a strict schedule. Now what do you mean by strict schedule? Now transactions can neither read nor write database item X until the last transaction that wrote X has committed or aborted. So if you see this dependency, so the previous recoverable definition, it is only applicable for when only it is applicable for read operations. But now it says that you can't also write any database item X until the parent transaction has committed. So if you see here we have a write X performed by T1. Here we have a write X performed by T2. And this occurs early in the schedule. So once it has written new value of X, now T1 has to be committed. Only then T2 is allowed to write a new value of X. But here what happens is now T1 writes an X which is overwritten by T2. So this is not a strict schedule. In a strict schedule, we should either read or write from a committed transaction. So If only after T1 has committed, we are allowed to write here. Since T1 has not committed, and in the meantime T2 is writing a new value of x, this is not a shift schedule. So S is a strict schedule. So statement D is false. This is not a strict schedule. So we are left with only statement C, which we know that it is true. S does not have a cascading abort. And these are the references. Thank you.